Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Boruto Anime episode review. This one's going to be for episode 32, which is called The Quest for Souvenirs. And I think it's fair to say this one was probably one of the weaker episodes of the series overall. This and that Sarada Run episode where she was delivering the teddy bear, I think kind of stand out as being the two weakest episodes. It wasn't like bad, it wasn't awful or anything like that, in that if you've probably been watching my Naruto and Boruto reviews for a while, you know that I'm not too critical of like the filler episodes unless they're just completely, there's nothing to them. I think this one came close to kind of being that kind of just utterly pointless filler, but there was some substance to it because it was also kind of, an epilogue to the Land of Village in the Mist arc. And what they did with that I thought was interesting, in that they kind of took the like new era approach with the Shizuma and so on, of like not just putting them in prison and kind of trying to rehabilitate them, which I do appreciate. I know, some people are obviously going to be very critical of it and not like we're kind of letting everyone get away with everything, but the whole kind of theme of the show has always been about like, the cycle of revenge and kind of stopping that, and really one of the only ways to do that is to kind of try and give people a second chance. So I appreciate Chodoro trying to do that, while also I suppose acknowledging that in covering it up and trying to make it kind of seem like it never happened, it's kind of this dark kind of look at things in a way that they're so desperate to keep the era of peace that they're not like making any of this public. But at the same time, I still think you have to acknowledge that like for the most part the current like Kage are very reasonable people. Jojo is a nice person at heart, hence why we saw what he did in the last few episodes with like helping the kids while also not making it like a huge incident. And what he sent back to Iruka here I thought was pretty funny, in that like obviously the key people who were involved in the fighting, Iwabe, Sarada and Boruto, are called to the office, and they both Shino and Iruka know exactly what they've done, but Boruto's just like, oh, we got lost and we just barely made it back in time. And then they get the letter from Chodoro and it's just like, please pardon them for what they did. It ended up helping both villages. Apologies. So it's just like Chodoro, they thought he was on their side, but he ended up kind of outing them in the end in a weird kind of like praising their actions type thing, but it ended up getting them in trouble. So that was a fun little moment of just you seeing Boruto doing all the acting, and then just like, oh, he did that to us. But the core of the episode is obviously Boruto returns home, and it comes out, of course, that he forgot to get Himawari a present, a souvenir, which he promised her in a previous episode, and she's annoyed with him because of this, and he has to make it up to her. With the premise, and this was the theme of the episode, being that I think Chodoro notes it, and some other characters noted as well, that Boruto is a very honest character. So here is the exploration of that, in that here is Boruto, I suppose, trying to get around, something that he promised by kind of, coming up with this kind of trick way to get her a souvenir and get out of being angry with her. But along the way, he does a lot of honest things, and then in the end, he gets her the souvenir, but he also is going to tell her the truth at the end and be honest. And it was just like, okay, just showing, I suppose, the principles that Boruto has as a character, and that even though he could have done the simple thing and just lied about it, he came clean in the end while also giving her some sort of a gift. So that was nice. I suppose in a way it was mainly there for Mitsuki's benefit, who was kind of with Boruto along his journey, in that Mitsuki kind of acknowledging that like, wow, Boruto, you're pretty weird, like, are you sure you don't want to do this? And then you had other moments like he was basically willing to like beat up the shop owner to just get Boruto the sweets, but he's just kind of like, no, he wants to do this. Then Mitsuki points out when they have the Shinobi Bout game that like, you can see her hand in the glass behind her, why did you just cheat to win? And Boruto just immediately stops the game and is just like, no, I give up. And kind of that honesty gets him the sweets for free, which I thought was a nice little moment, but not particularly important. And I think that was most of the episode. Like, there was the Orochimaru scene with Suigetsu, which is interesting, and it's probably one of the first times we've really seen like the idea that, okay, we know Orochimaru is still doing his experiments, but here's a sense of him kind of having a larger plan, and he's actually planning to do something. And just the fact that he knows so much about what's going on in like the village hidden in the mist, and he kind of questions, like, who got the information about them that it was actually Shizuma doing this and not Chojuro? And Suigetsu obviously helped out Mitsuki by presenting that information. Obviously, at some point in the anime, they're going to have to reference the Mitsuki one-shot thing. I assume that's getting animated at some point. But I assume they want to save Mitsuki's powers, like, reveals for, like, a bigger moment to fully establish why Mitsuki has this connection to Boruto, and potentially whatever Orochimaru wants to do. I'm not sure how I feel if they're going to have Orochimaru have it go down some sort of an evil road again, because I actually like him better as he is now, in that, like, he's had his moment where he was evil, he had his, like, secondary moment when he was evil, and it felt like they, while not apologizing for everything he's done, they've sort of redeemed him in a way, and he's in a position now where he can be somewhat helpful because he is a very intelligent character with all these connections he has to, like, Suigetsu and Mitsuki and so on. I'd prefer him to just be that sort of, like, almost information broker type character who has more this darker information, but he actually kind of supports the main hero characters, and maybe has something little going on the side. I don't know how I feel if they're going to go for, like, some big, like, Orochimaru who's actually betrayed everyone's trust again and so on, unless they use it as a way to like complete, like, Mitsuki's character arc or something like that, where, like, Orochimaru does betray everyone and it's actually Mitsuki who kind of stands up to Orochimaru and, showcases that, like, he's really learned everything from Boruto and he's made the right decision here. But it's going to take a lot of time to get to that point, if they decide to go down that road. But I think that's more or less everything. The only other thing was the shop that had the food from all the other lands. It was this kind of weird thing of, like, Sarada has a weird reason for why she goes there, and we're not really sure, and that she doesn't want Boruto to investigate why she knows about it. So that's a bit of a weird one. Maybe it's meant to just be a reference to the fact that, like, Sasuke had that connection to that shop that he went to with the cat people, and he didn't really tell anyone about that. Does it have any meaning? I'm not really sure. But that's really all there was to the episode. As I said, it was fine. It wasn't, like, awful, unwatchable, or boring. It just didn't have the impact, and I think it's definitely a somewhat questionable decision to try and basically have what is a filler episode of Boruto just going around trying to get sweets, and try to combine that with a somewhat interesting wrap-up to the previous arc that was actually, like, way better than expected. In that there was the Kagura stuff of him practicing with the sword and trying to basically cut a piece of paper on the water with a wooden sword, and the idea is that you have to kind of strike true and be very stable in your strike, otherwise you can't do it. And obviously what they were going for was the idea that Kagura is still struggling with what he did during the incident in the last few episodes, and so he can't cut the paper, and it's part of the reason for why he didn't go to say goodbye to Boruto. And it's Chojiro's advice to him, basically saying, like, with Boruto, if you're just, like, honest with him and just really clear and open with him, he will forgive you for that. And over the course of the episode, he obviously writes the episode and sends it to Boruto as a kind of apology, and Boruto, appreciates it, but is still kind of like, all you needed to say was just say a quick sorry, that's all I wanted. So, it's setting up the fact that Kagura's still kind of out there, and that probably he'll appear at some point as somewhat of an ally to Boruto. They're kind of setting up that, in a way, Kagura is, like, starting again. He's, like, going back through some of his training to earn being able to use the Himakakari, or the name of the sword that Chojiro has. He's doing training to be worthy of that sword, and worthy of the position that Chojiro thinks he can be. So that's interesting if we ever do see him return, and, like, has, like, complete control over that sword at some point. they're also setting up that like Shizuma and the other characters, like something could happen with them down the line if they really needed to. Maybe they managed to turn them around on some topics. I don't really see any way you can reintroduce them as villains at all. That just feels like it would be too much of a stretch after what you've just done. But it feels like you've kept them all alive for like a reason. And that if you do manage to get them all on side, they seem like a young group that could develop into a potentially really good team of like, Seven Ninja Swordsmen of the Mist. But that would involve, I think, really characterizing a lot of them a lot more than you currently have. With Kagura being right now kind of the only one we necessarily care about a ton. But that's that. I think overall this arc, the Mist arc, was good because it just established a lot of stuff about this village, which has otherwise just been presented as like pure darkness, mystery, all the bad stuff happens here, and here you dealt with that, but also addressing that it has a new era now. And I think it really got across Chojiro as a leader a lot more, that he is fundamentally this really good-natured character, but he, in this leadership position, is willing to make the kind of choices that he has to make, even if it potentially makes him look like he's keeping things secret or hidden, for the sake of this new kind of era of peace that we're in. So that really helped who was probably like the most questionable like of the new leaders, of just like, okay, everyone else like, yeah, him, Naruto, they're the leaders, and Chojiro for the Mist. Okay. But this really helped to, I think, make him into a much more like, okay, he feels on that level now. Probably still needs his big, amazing fight, but that might come at some later point. Other than that, no, I think that's all I really have to say about this episode. Fine, but not particularly impressive. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the episode, as well as what I had to say about it. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.